Hello everyone, welcome back to the Analyst for 5th November 2024, where we will be discussing 7 most important articles from the Hindu and the Indian Express. In the very first section of this discussion, we'll be discussing 2 important articles from an analyst's viewpoint, where in the first article we'll be discussing about the US elections and the implications of the same on India. In the second article, we'll be discussing about the CBI and its general consent and the various aspects how it involves India's federalism. From a simplified perspective, where we'll be understanding articles in greater detail for prelims 2025. So stay tuned. On 5th November, the United States is going to vote, and they are going to select their new president. And this is a very important aspect for not only the United States, but also for the rest of the world, especially India. Now, in this article, what C. Raja Mohan is talking all about is how US over a period of time, it has been alleged that recently US's power is on a declining trajectory. But this article is arguing exactly the opposite. It is trying to assert that US power can never decline in the current political scenario on the international aspect. And in this article, we'll be also understanding various aspects which are important regarding UPSC understanding, our own syllabus understanding regarding the US elections and how they also impact India. Because in prelims, we have to look at the various current events of national and international importance. Alongside, we also have to understand the GS2 perspective of how politics and policies of developed and developing countries affect India's interest, and that is where we have to understand that the US election is a part of the US polity and how that can impact India's interest. This is actually the topic of discussion in this article. Now, we'll be starting with the very basics. We'll be starting with the election day in the United States. As of 5th November, the entire nation is waiting in a bated breath to understand who is going to be the next president of the US. And it is said that the president of the US is the most powerful person in the entire world, and that is what we have to understand in this article. Now, when we talk about how the US president is elected, we have to start with the eligibility conditions first. Firstly, according to the US Constitution, the requirements for the presidential candidates are threefold. Firstly, they have to be naturally born in the US, and obviously we have to understand they are the citizens of the US, and apart from that they have to be naturally born. Next, the minimum age is 35 years according to the US Constitution. In the comment section, can you tell me that what is the minimum age that our Indian Prime Minister has to attain, say, in order to become the Prime Minister of the country, right? And also, the person has to be US resident for at least 14 years. After this, the first step is something which we know as primary and caucus. Now, we have to understand the US polity system, or say the political system, particularly when it pertains to the states and their governors and the nation as a whole and the president. We have to understand that the entire process is very transparent, and we have to understand that in this entire process, the media, the people of the country, they are all involved in this particular same. So this is where there are many people who want to become the president of the country. That is the president of the US, right? But how they will be, fulfilling their aspirations to become the president. Now, they all have their different ideas how the government can be better, how we can have some better improvements over a period of time. So people with similar ideas, they belong to the same political parties. In US, there are 2 political parties, the Democrats, the Republicans. So these people, they try to group themselves within these political parties, and this is exactly where firstly the primaries come and then the caucuses come into the picture, right? Candidates from each of the political parties campaign throughout the country, right? Firstly, they try to campaign independently. This is where they require a lot of funding, right? Because they individually try to campaign, and also they try to gather support from various sections of the population, from the business classes, from the NGOs, from the various climate activists, from the various strata and sections of the population, right? And then they participate in a caucus, right? The caucus is actually the event where the party members of these 2 political parties, they select the best candidates when they were campaigning across the country. right? They select the best candidates through a series of discussions and the votes, right? That is internal party democracy, right? Then in a primary, say, event, the party members vote for the best candidate that they will be representing in the general election, right? So in the primary aspect, the main presidential candidates from each of the political parties, they will be selected. This was the first step. In the second step, at the national convention, each political party will be holding a national convention to select a final presidential nominee, right? At each convention, the presidential candidate chooses a running mate, or say the vice presidential candidate. So not only the president has to be clear, the vice president, who is the vice president, that person also has to be clear according to that presidential candidate. Now the presidential candidates campaign throughout the country to win the support of the general population. Now in the step 3, this is a general election where people in every state across the country, they vote for the president and the vice president, right? And when the people cast their vote, they're actually voting for a group of people known as the electors. Now who are these electors? These electors are a part of this electoral college. Now in the electoral college system, each state get a certain number of electors based on the represented in the Congress, right? So as you can understand, there are 538 electoral votes, and that is divided between the various political candidates there. Each elector cast one vote following the general election, and the candidates who get more than half, right? So it has to be more than half, that is around 270 votes. So that person will be winning, right? So it is not a direct election where the people are directly electing the president of the US. It is actually the people who are electing representative to their electoral college, and then their electoral college are electing their president, right? So this is exactly how this entire process is working. And finally, the president and the administration is finally going to take office in the month of January. Now in this entire process, we can understand some things. Firstly, that Americans do not directly vote for their president, right? And also this is actually a system where the winner takes all, right? This means that in around 48 states except Maine and Nebraska, right? So there is a policy of winner takes all. That means this is a system where the presidential and the vice presidential candidates who get the most number of votes win every vote in this particular state. That is, if you cross that 270 mark, you are exactly winning the entire state, right? So this is how you can understand there are around this many states, and according to many media speculations, many polls, right, as of now, the states which are in red are actually the states which kind of prominently will be voting for Donald Trump. Now, if this particular state is voting for Donald Trump and approximately say 55% of the votes is in the favor of Trump, so the entire state goes to Trump. So this is exactly how this electoral college system is working, that winner takes all, right? Winner takes all of the state, and the majority of the states in favor of a majority of the presidential candidate. For example, if in this case it is Trump or Kamala Harris, so that particular candidate will be winning the election. And in this election, not only you have to get majority of the state support and everything, you have to take support, and you have to be very cautious about these swing states. Now these swing states can vary from different years. That is the last election, it was in 2020, before that 2016. Now in every year, there are some swing states which can be same, which can be different, which have a history of not having a proper, or say a proper base for electing a particular person or a particular political party. For example, say it can be that California for the past 200 years have only selected Republican candidates. It can be the case, right? But we have to understand that there are some states, right? For example, the states of Arizona, or say the states marked in yellow here, right? These are the states which have neither favored each of the political parties. In every election, a large portion of the people can switch their candidates from the last elections. So these are the swing states, right? They do not vote across party lines. There are some states in blue and red, as we can see here, which actually vote according to their party lines historically, but these states do not. And the majority of the election focus is actually on these 7 states, right? the presidential candidates, they know that they can win the other states, but they campaign more intensively, as also has been seen in this year, that both Donald Trump and also Kamala Harris, they campaigned more extensively in these swing states because these states dictate their favor. Now here, when we have understood the electoral process and how there are some dynamics at place, we have to understand what is at stake. We will be discussing across economy, abortion, immigration, foreign policy and climate policies according to the presidential candidates. So firstly, we'll be focusing on the economic aspect because 2020 was a year when Biden came to power, right? And just when Biden came to power, we had the COVID pandemic. And after that, we have seen how the US economy went through a phase of economic turmoil. Firstly, it was a pandemic, then it was high inflation, right? Also, during the pandemic, we have seen high rates of unemployment in the US. There were mass layoffs, right? So Biden had to fight off this kind of issues. And it would be injustice to say that Biden did not succeed in this matter. While as of now, unemployment rate is quite low. Inflation is also quite low, but people are actually angry with the high cost of living. That is actually the living standards, that is the grocery bills. This is actually very significant aspect because Kamala Harris, in her presidential speeches, in their campaigns, she has argued that the groceries bill will be one of the major impacts. If she comes to power, she will be distributing various financial aids to households to decrease their grocery bills. So this is a very, very important kind of a topic for this election. Next, we all know about Donald Trump's various policies on tariffs, import tariffs, and also how over a period of time he wants to make America great again by bringing all the jobs that US outsourced in the 1990s, 2000 decades to countries such as Asian nations, Latin American nations back to US. So he definitely wants to increase the tariffs, the protectionism that was prevalent during his stint as president earlier. And also, at the opposite, Kamala Harris is focusing more on liberal tax cuts for the poorer classes while raising the taxes from the richer households and the companies. And she is also trying to spend more on the healthcare aspects and the various social security aspects. So these are the various things that the US population is staring at when it comes to economy. Then, this case of abortion was a significant thing in 2022 when in the Roe versus Wade verdict, the US Supreme Court, it overturned this particular case and put kind of an indirect ban on abortions in most of the US states. While most of the US states, they also tried to enforce this ban across the country. While it was the Republican dominated states that did not ban abortion as of now, right, in the US, but this is one of the things that Trump till this date, he argues that it was his achievement, right? We can understand that abortion is a kind of a very controversial issue at the heart of the US debate. And this is exactly what Kamala Harris is also arguing, that she will be bringing back the legal rights and also the various liberal aspects when it comes to abortion. She will be liberalizing the abortion policies even more and will be counteracting the Roe versus Wade verdict. And this is actually making her more popular across the US politics and particularly among the women in the country. Next, when it comes to immigration, we all know Donald Trump's legacy, right? Be it Mexico and building a wall, right, along US borders to prevent infiltrators or various illegal immigrants coming into the US, or be it the various visa restrictions on particular countries such as China, India, Philippines, right, which are actually the major sources of immigrants into the US. So the Trump administration back then and even now, they are arguing that they will be increasing funding to prevent more immigration into the country. It will be also giving more and more funds for anti-immigration policies. While at the other end of the spectrum, Kamala Harris people may perceive her to be benevolent in this case, but not, right? Because she is also acting tough on this particular matter. While we all understand her background, while she has never publicly, or say even in her stint as vice president of the US, she did not visit India in this particular matter, right? So we cannot tell that she will be pro-immigration kind of a say president or a candidate in this particular matter, because she is also acting tough and she identifies herself more closely with the black community in the US than the other communities, right? And also, as we can understand, economy is actually the top issue for voters according to the various other issues such as healthcare, Supreme Court appointments, foreign policy, immigration, gun policy, right, which is also a very, very important issue in the US. Now, when we look at the others things which are at stake, firstly, when we look at the foreign policy, we understand US is involved indirectly in the West Asian conflicts, in the Russia-Ukraine crisis through various sanctions and the various, say, weapon transfers and so on. So this is actually one of the things which US has been doing over a period of time since 1940s, 1950s until now, right? US has always been supporting conflicts all across the world, primarily to boost their military, say, exports to various countries all across the world. And this is actually one of the things which are continuing even under Biden administration. And according to various, say, presidential debates and campaigns, it has not yet been clear how Kamala Harris will be proceeding with the same, though she had focused on Russia-Ukraine crisis and how US can end the conflict. But also, we can understand that US has a history of supporting conflicts indirectly all across the world according to their own interests. Next, Donald Trump has long advocated, disentangling the US from the various conflicts abroad. This was also seen in Afghanistan when US pulled itself out from Afghanistan, right? Can anyone tell me in which year this took place in the comment section? So, in Afghanistan and also in various conflicts all across the world, it was seen that Trump did not support US money, US soldiers' life to be lost on the battlefield. So Trump is actually arguing on this ground even now, but it has been a newfound trend in Trump that has been seen recently, that he is also interested in solving issues with Vladimir Putin and also the Israel issue which is going on right now. So, but again, the same understanding has to be developed when the final, say, presidential candidates are actually in their office. And finally, on the climate frontier, we have to understand that Trump has been open about not caring much about the climate change aspect, at least, right? Trump has time and again threatened that it will be pulling out from all major climate deals that US is part of, right? It has also not been part of various important agreements that the entire world must be focusing on. And various experts, they also are very, very concerned that if Trump is coming into power, what will be the case of the various climate change aspects, the various funding aspects that took place during Biden administration. While at the other end, Kamala Harris has actually focused on raising billions of dollars for various projects of green financing, solar projects, renewable energies, and this is concerning US investments in also the various developing countries all across the world. But on the other aspect, she is also not very enthusiastic about, say, the various pro-climate deals such as anti-fracking campaigns and so on in her own soil. So these are the various mixed actions that she is also sending from her side. And also, if we look at the more challenging global economic look that is actually being feared, that if Trump is coming into power, the major markets across Africa, Asia, China and various other parts, they are expected to have lower economic potential, such as the Indian stock markets, right? That is why, as of now, as we have seen, right, yesterday and even today, we see that there is a stock market, say, kind of a crash, right? Because the foreign portfolio investors, they are not quite sure about what will be the outcome of the elections. If Trump is coming into power, he will be putting across economic sanctions and economic, import tariffs and so on, which will be not facilitating the world trade or, liberal economic policies. On the other hand, Harris has a positive economic outlook, right? On the other hand, if we also look at the US per capita, or say the annual carbon dioxide emissions, right, this is also quite high. This is why the next administration must be focusing a lot on the climate change aspect too. Now, when we come to this entire discussion about what is at stake, how the elections are, occurring in this particular matter, now finally, we have to actually understand if at all this US election is important for India and the rest of the world or not. Now, there have been many critics of the US. There have been many critics of, of the US, prominently from the socialist, say, ideologies kind of countries such as China and the Soviet academicians, and even right now there are many academicians which actually, predict the fall of the US power over a period of time. So first, historical route about how American decline can be possible is firstly through the Marxist prediction that capitalism can not sustain over a period of time, because it is the main profit of the same is only profit, and someday the labor class will be rising up in arms against the state if it is promoting too much of capitalism. So firstly, the Marxist prediction is foretelling the fall of the US. Next, according to Lenin's imperialist theory, US will be falling down because imperialism or imperialist is someone who is at the peak levels of his capitalism, right? And the downfall of the same is imminent for the US. Now, these are according to various theories. Similarly, according to Spengler's, cultural critic of the Western civilization, it is also, said that the Western civilization and the economic models that they follow is not sustainable for a long period of time, and that is when they will be collapsing. And finally, the Soviet and the Chinese assertions, right, of the US power, right? This is also something that has also given us some prominent examples in recent times, such as the rise of Chinese ambitions, and also China becoming one of the top 3 countries when it comes to the global GDP, domination. So this is exactly how, these countries, while, the Russia was USSR, the Soviet Union, and right now China, they have kind of asserted their own economic presence over a period of time, and this has kind of, say, reduced US's influence. Now, this is according to various experts, and let me tell you, this will be very important for students with PSI or optional too. Now, these are the various allegations, but is it actually in real life? Now, Dr. C. Raja Mohan is arguing various reasons. Firstly, China's growth is slowing down, as is also has been seen recently, right? China's government is giving various economic stimulus to boost its economy, because the overall demand and also the production of goods and services are down, right? So if one of the major, say, competitors of the US, they are slowing down, and US is actually quite resilient right now. US has fought back the inflation aspect. It is kind of building itself on various technologies such as artificial intelligence and so on. So US economy is not, say, weak like China. It is quite resilient as of now. Next, we have to understand that Eurozone's decline is also something that US is actually, having some scope to enhance its power, because prominently the Western European nations such as Germany, France, the UK, and the various other nations, they are also witnessing some sort of recessions time and again because of the economic slowdown pertaining just after the COVID pandemic, and also during 2018-19 they were also facing slowdown in their economic activity due to many factors, and one of the major factors is also the factor of demography. It is said that in the Western nations, particularly in the Eurozone, the demand for goods and services coming down because most of the population there are aging, right? Also, the EU faced various crises, particularly after UK exited the Eurozone, right? And also the EU is also facing various important issues, particularly in the context of Russia-Ukraine crisis. Now, the next factor is that US has always had this strategic flexibility. How? Firstly, we have to understand that the entire world, let me tell you what, at one point of time was against India due to its nuclear aspirations. But US in 2005-8, right, it was quite successful into entering direct agreements with India in our nuclear deal to have more and more better nuclear reactors, amount of nuclear energy in the country, right? Next, also after the Russia-Ukraine crisis, US one-handedly tried to lead the various amounts of, say, sanctions against Russia. And all of the Western nations, let me tell you, they agreed to this kind of sanctions. Next, according to military infrastructure, according to research and development, be the number of research in the entire world and also the innovation, they are all top-notch in the US. So to say that US's powers they have diminished, this is not exactly correct. Also, US is shifting towards unilateralism. That is a position in which a particular country is actually quite dominant across all spheres of human activity, of, say, economic spheres, political spheres, all across the world, right? So this is one country where it is acting by oneself, right? That is uni, that is one, and lateral, that means side, right? And ism, it is actually, or say unilateralism is actually a kind of a belief system. The belief system where US thinks that it itself is enough to influence all of the world order. And both Trump and Biden administrations over a period of time, it has been seen that their policies reflect unilateral tendencies, which have one important aspect, one and only aspect, that is promoting the US national interest. And also, according to various Biden's economic policies, such as the Inflation Reduction Act, it is kind of encouraging more and more European investments into the US, right? And if more and more investments come into the US, it is good for their nation. Next, also US has weaponized finance, that is promoting the dollar as the international reserve currency, where the dollar is used in all of the, most of the international trade worldwide, right? Also, secondary sanctions just after the Russian-Ukraine crisis and the various, say, economic aspects, also particularly to, counter Iran back in 2018-19 by Donald Trump, right? So these all say that US has some influence and also some unilateralism kind of a thing all across the world. And finally, what are the implications for India in all of this? Firstly, India and US are very good partners across all economic spheres, particularly when China is on the rise right now. So India must not be complacent in this relationship, right? It must not be, taking, US for granted, right? So this is exactly what, India must be doing. Then it must be closely monitoring what is actually the shift, what is actually the polity in the US as of now, just after the elections. It must be also involving in diplomatic engagements with the US constituencies and the individual US states, right? And finally, it also must be avoiding over-reliance on countervailing alliance that India is also part of, such as BRICS, right? Such as SCO, right? Which were actually formed to, say, counter the Western influence. So India must be also careful on that particular aspect. Indian diaspora is also present, across the US, which will be one of the major, say, force behind the US elections this year too. So this is exactly how India must be forming a realistic foreign policy, keeping everything in mind. Now, according to this lengthy discussion, there is one question for all of you, right? That is, a discourse on American decline, while historically pervasive, does not align with present or current realities. Present your arguments, you give me 2-3 arguments of your own, and in the comment section you let me know who do you think will be winning the election, and who do you think, if Trump or Harris wins, is better for India. In this next article, we'll be discussing about the CBI and the general consent involved in this particular issue. Now, this topic is very important for the prelims perspective, because we have Indian polity and governance, where we have to look into various aspects of CBI and the issues related to the same. Also, in GS2, we have to look into the various issues and challenges pertaining to the federal structure of our country. Now, recently, the Supreme Court adjourned plea against the withdrawal of CBI general consent for probe against Karnataka Deputy CM, right? Now, this is exactly how we have to understand the various aspects of the consent when it comes to the CBI. Now, firstly, we'll be discussing about the CBI first. Now, CBI is a premier investigative agency in India, as we all know, for investigative serious or grievous crimes, fighting corruption cases, and also investigations on behalf of Interpol, right? So when it comes to international collaboration on, say, criminal affairs, CBI is also involved in this particular matter. Now, CBI was actually formulated according to the Santhanam Committee recommendations on prevention of corruption, that was formed in 1962 to 1964. Now, also the Ministry of Home Affairs in the resolution of 1963, they also conceptualized the formation of the CBI, right? The nodal ministry of the same is Ministry of Personnel, Public Grievances and Pensions. The powers that CBI is drawing from is from Delhi Special Police Establishment Act of 1946, and the superintendence of the CBI is with the CVC, Central Vigilance Commission, under the Prevention of Corruption Act 1988. And this is actually a very, very important act for conviction of various central government employees when it comes to cases of corruption. And the appointment of the director is actually done by the Prime Minister, Leader of Opposition, and the Chief Justice of India, that is the Chief Justice, where these three people are involved in the appointment of the director of the CBI, correct? And this director is having a 2-year tenure, and the tenure is governed by the CVC Act of 2003. And let me tell you, CBI is actually under various acts, as we can see: CVC Act, Prevention of Corruption Act, right? Delhi Special Police Establishment Act. Also, nodal ministry, is Ministry of Personnel. So this is where we have to understand these are very important for your prelims, correct? So the entire structure looks like this, and this is exactly where we have to pay attention when it comes to how the center's power can be influenced on the CBI. How? Firstly, the Prime Minister's office is having the supervision of the Department of Personnel and Training, right? And we have seen it is a nodal agency for CBI, right? So this can influence the CBI director. We also have the CVC, Central Vigilance Commission, which is supervising the functioning of the CBI, which is also under the functioning of the central government. So we have from two directions already we have seen how the CBI can be, say, impacted directly from the central government. While the CBI director and the CBI in general is having the various, say, parts where we have the Economic Offences Division, Anti-Corruption Division, and also Special Crime Division. When it comes to the various types of cases that CBI deals with, firstly we have the investigation of cases under the Prevention of Corruption Act of 1988. We also have the various economic crimes that takes place in the country where CBI can investigate the same. We also have the suo case that CBI can take in the various union territories of the country. We also have on governments of India asking, right? CBI can actually prove any crime in a state, but only with the prior permission from the state government, that is taking their consent of the state government. We'll be coming into this in the next part. And also, if Supreme Court and the High Court has ordered that CBI is to do a particular state or say a particular investigation or probe in a particular state, right, or any UT, then the state government cannot withhold its consent. Then it has to give it consent, or say the consent is already been given by the judiciary. And finally, when it comes to special crimes, be it terrorism, be it any kind of abduction or for ransom, or any crimes committed by the mafia around the world, it can be also be going to the CBI. Now, the general consent is very interesting aspect, right? We understand that police and public order are state subjects, right, where we have the local state police for the matter. But when, for example, for any investigation, the CBI needs to come to a state and investigate the matter. Now it is an established norm that the state government must be giving its general consent, right, to the CBI. Then only the say particular CBI can come into the state and investigate the various matters. While it can be one thing that according to the section 6 of the DSPE Act, the CBI needs consent from the concerned government, state government, before initiating an investigation within its jurisdiction. Sometimes the states say that, okay, you have the general consent and you can come, that is the CBI can come and investigate any say offenses, any say case here. But sometimes the states in recent times, as in the case of Maharashtra, Rajasthan, West Bengal, Punjab, Chhattisgarh, right? So these states have withdrawn its general consent. That means the states are telling that every time CBI now needs to come and investigate, you have to ask permission from me. Now there is no general consent. I did not tell you anything. Whatever consent I had given you, I have withdrawn it. And for any matter, you have to take permission, right? And this is also pertaining to any corruption charges with reference to central government employees in the states too, because according to Prevention of Corruption Act, right, the particular authority which is trying to investigate according to this particular act, they must be taking some consent, right, from the concerned authority, that is the state government, right? So this also concerned this particular matter. Now the states withdrawing consent have been many in the recent times, and recently West Bengal also kind of presented some concrete steps or say concrete arguments. Firstly, that it is a kind of a constitutional overreach that sometimes in various political matters, in various other issues, the center can rope in the CBI to go and investigate the various state government affairs. So it can sometimes go against the federal structure according to West Bengal government allegations, right? Also, the union government argument is that the CBI is independent in their own, it's an agency in their own matters when it comes to investigation, right? But here, the Supreme Court's investigation, when it comes to concluding remark, we have to keep in mind the Supreme Court's interpretation about how center is alleging that, CBI is quite independent in this matter, right? So Supreme Court rejected that particular aspect, and Supreme Court told that CBI is the organ or body of the government of India, right? As we can see here in this hierarchy, we just clarified how government of India or the central government can influence the CBI's functioning. Supreme Court is telling exactly that it is established and also under the superintendence of the government of India, right? The powers of superintendence of the center will not relate to superintendence of investigation of a particular case. That thing must be with the CBI. That investigation independence must be with the CBI. But it has been seen according to the Supreme Court and also according to various Supreme Court cases too. Various petitioners argued that there have been the cases where center has been sending CBI to various state governments, misutilizing the general consent given to them, right? And the CBI is also investigate the main offenses independently. That is the ideal scenario, but that is not happening, right? So this is where we have to keep that in mind. And also the states which are withdrawing the general consent, right, such as West Bengal, Jharkhand, as we have seen here, they are not absolute, correct? So if CBI needs to investigate some matter that is concerning money laundering, right, or for example, say some heinous murder or crime or some rape has happened, now that is in a national interest. In that matter, the states cannot say withdraw the general consent. That consent is already given when it comes to the national interest cases. Also, Article 131 can be used as a remedy that was also been highlighted in these two Supreme Court cases, that is the state of Karnataka and the state of Rajasthan in 1977, right? So these are very important cases when it comes to Article 131 that can be used as a remedy. Now, in this particular case, we have a mains PYQ from 2021 where the question is quite large, but you let me know what do you think of the same in the comments below when it comes to whether, right, with special relevance to the federal character of India, right, the states are correct in their order to or say correct in their stance to withdraw general consent or not. In the next article, we'll be looking into the National Commission on the Scheduled Tribes, because recently it had sent or sought report from the NTCA on villages location or say relocation from the tiger reserves. It's a very important topic from Indian polity and governance point of view in your prelims. And also in GS2, we have appointment to various constitutional posts, power and functions, responsibilities of various constitutional bodies. And the NCST is a constitutional body which we have to understand here. Now, the National Commission for Scheduled Tribes is a constitutional body under Article 338A of the Constitution of India, which was brought in under the 89th Amendment Act of 2003. It composes of a chairman, a vice chairman, and 3 members. The main functions is that it monitors the safeguards that is present to various STs across the countries and how these safeguards are implemented across the various state governments and also by the central government. It also conducts investigation and also inquiries into various complaints that arises across the country when it comes to the, say, aspects of scheduled tribes, right? It also makes recommendations to the state governments and also to the central governments how we can actually improve the development over a period of time of the tribal populations in the country. It also advises the central and state governments on how we can actually try to improve the social welfare and the social status and how we can also involve the ST population into the mainstream say polity, society, economy by improving their standards. We this particular NCST can also review the progress of various development schemes and programs. Now in the comment section, can you let me know of 2-3 important schemes of the central government for the tribal development of our country? Finally, the NCST can also visit any scheduled tribal areas and interact with the community there to understand their problems and aspirations. When it comes to the power of the NCST, they have the powers similar to the civil court. They can summon and enforce attendance of any person, require the discovery and production of any document, receive evidence on affidavits, requisition of public record or document, or issue commissions for the examination of witnesses. Now here, when it comes to this particular news, right, the NCST has taken cognizance of this matter when it comes to NTCA, and they have asked the state forest departments to submit action taken plans on the relocation of the various villages from the tiger reserves, right? Now, also we have to understand what is the main matter here when it concerns the National Tiger Conservation Authority, right? Now, we have to understand on the basis of its 2018 recommendations to, revise the, say, compensation package offered to the villagers voluntarily opting to move out of tiger reserves. The NCST has said in October 2018 that the compensation package which was proposed by the NTCA is not based on the Land Acquisition, Rehabilitation and Resettlement Act of 2013. Now, when it comes to NTCA, this is a statutory body established under the Wildlife Protection Act of 1972 as amended in 2006. Now, the members are chairperson. The chairperson is actually the Minister of the Environment, Forest and Climate Change, right? Next, we have the Minister of State also as a member. We have 3 MPs, Member of Parliament, and the Secretary of the Minister of Environment and Forest Change, and also we have various other members of this particular NTCA. The main purpose is to strengthen tiger conservation and manage Project Tiger and India's tiger reserves all across the country. And when it comes to, say, the relocation of various villages due to, say, protecting tiger reserves, NTCA is also looking into this particular matter. The key function is managing tiger population, their assessment, habitat conservation, reducing human-animal or say human-tiger conflict in these areas of tiger reserves, ensuring sustainable development around the tiger reserve so that the villagers and the various tribal communities, they can have a sustainable livelihood, right? And also it is also about advising the central government on tiger conservation policies in the country. Now, when we look at this particular news, the NTCA revised the compensation 2021 from 10 lakhs to 15 lakhs, and according to National Commission on Scheduled Tribes, this is not enough. Correct? So that is why the action taken report has to be given here. NTCA had written to the State Forest Department asking them to take up village relocation on a priority basis and have a timeline. But this is also conflicting because we have to understand there are 591 villages around the tiger reserves. 64,000 approx families live there in critical tiger habitats, or when we look at the tiger reserves, maybe this is the entire area, right? And there is a core area where the probability of finding tigers are maximum. So we have to protect these areas and uplift the conservation aspects here of the tiger. So that is why the government, through the NTCA, it is declaring some aspects or some areas of the tiger reserves at core areas. So this is also which we know as critical tiger habitats. So these critical tiger habitats have around 64,800 families of around 591 villages, right, across 54 tiger reserves. So there are also people living in these core areas, right? So, well, NTCA is trying to relocate these villagers. Now they have to give compensation, right? Now this compensation is less according to the act that we have just mentioned here, right? And also the NTCA is proposing a timeline for the evacuation or say the relocation. While we have to understand the NTCA's letter was violation of the Forest Rights Act again. The Forest Rights Act is giving the property rights, the habitat rights to the forested say villagers, the forest dwellers, the tribal populations, but it is not having any time limit in this particular matter, because relocation and this kind of things, they require some time. You cannot have a particular time limit and say that you have to relocate within this particular time. Correct. So this is also one aspect which has not been done after consultation with the tribal population, the local communities, right? Also, this is against the violation of the Forest Rights Act, right? Also, another provision of violation is that Gram Sabha was not consulted, right? And also, additionally, the state government has to conclude that activities of the tribal communities or their presence are sufficient to cause damage to tigers. Now, why they are being relocated? Because the NTCA is maybe assuming that their presence, the villagers' presence, they are attracting some kind of say issue for the conservation of tigers, right? So right now the National Commission of scheduled tribes, they have suggested that you have to give the reason, the state government have to give the reasons that their presence is posing some threat, right? And there is no other aspect or say other solution than relocating, because these villages, we have to understand, since time immemorial they have been living with the tigers in their natural habitat, correct? So all of a sudden, if you're telling that you have to relocate within a time manner at a less compensation, in itself that is a violation. And also, this is something also unnatural in this particular matter. So we can use this very important news article for prelims, or also for our mains. And this particular question in 2017 in mains PYQ is that what are the two major legal initiatives by the state since independence? So one aspect that we looked in regarding the scheduled tribal is actually the setting of the National Commission of say the scheduled tribes, right? Now in the comment section, can you let me know one and two other say legal efforts that the government of India took to uplift or say address the discrimination against the scheduled tribes in the country. In the next article, we'll be looking into the recent WHO report on the global tuberculosis status across the world, where it has some of the instances when it comes to India too. It is very important for our prelims when we have to understand the disease of tuberculosis, right, as say potential question in the prelims examination. Also, when we look at GS2, we have the issues pertaining to the health sector of our country. So we have to be very serious about this particular article here. When it comes to tuberculosis, now it is an infectious disease caused by the Mycobacterium tuberculosis bacteria. So it is a bacterial disease, right? Now, when we have to look into signs and symptoms, there are various symptoms which are associated with weight loss, persistent fever, cough for more than 14 days, coughing up blood, fatigue, night sweats, reduced appetite. So this is exactly how TB is actually showing some symptoms. While there are some preventions such as the BCG vaccine, it is having some limited effectiveness. We can also go for early diagnosis and treatment. We have to ensure adequate ventilation in the crowded areas, public places. Also, we have to prevent the drug resistance, because the TB, traditional TB drugs, they have become resistant, or say the bacteria, they have mutated, they have evolved that they are not acting against these TB drugs. Now, there have been many efforts, or when it comes to India, there have been many efforts to eliminate TB in the country. Firstly, we have the National Tuberculosis Elimination Program. We have the Nikshay Poshan Yojana, the nutritional support to TB patients in assuring proper amount of nutrition to them. We have the Pradhan Mantri TB Mukt Bharat Abhiyan, and also we have the National Nutrition Mission, which is actually a very, very important initiative to promote better amount of nutrition, particularly among lactating mothers, and also giving safe and nutritious food to children. And over a period of time, as we can see, right, so the TB cases in India, right, which are at the reporting stage, is at around 25 lakh, which has increased from 2023, right? Also the estimated mortality, as we can understand, it is kind of same, and it has decreased from 2020 in recent times. Now this article is talking about the recent status, or say the recent positive news that is coming for India when it comes to the management of TB, because India has closed the gap between detected and undiagnosed case in the last 8 years, right? In 2023, India is estimated to have around 27 lakh TB patients. It's a very important data that all of you can note down. And the fact that more than 85% of the suspected cases, right, were actually under treatment as of now, because we have to understand more than 50% of these cases who did not fall under medical system succumb or die of the infection. Now if around 85% are already under treatment, so the morbidity probability is kind of less. And the article is telling that there have been many successes in containing the multi-drug resistant TB in the country, and also affecting the various kind of interventions for TB by the government of India, right? But we have to understand that there are various concerns also. Last year, a Lancet report pointed that poor diet in adults contribute to 35 to 45% of all the new TB cases annually, right? Government data also shows that the support for this kind of nutritional cases, or say nutritional aspect for TB patients, they're continuing. But we have to understand that these particular government initiatives, they do not even reach, right, more than a fifth of the TB infected patients, right? So the 4/5 of the patients, they do not receive any kind of, say, government initiative when it comes to nutritional balance. Also, a study published in the PLOS Global Health last year, it noted that there have been significant sections of TB infected patients in the country who had various significant medical cost, and this is as high as 20%, correct? So this is actually, we have to understand that over a period of time we have to take many measures that will be improving the scenario of the TB in the country. And according to this particular topic, we have a PYQ from 2017 on the National Nutrition Mission. Now in the comment section, you let me know what is the answer of the same using your intelligence and common sense, particularly because prelims is all about using common sense. And let me tell you, let me give you a hint. There are some points in this particular question where you can read and understand that this particular aspect of a government scheme is not practical. So you let me know what is the answer of this MCQ in the comments below. In the next article, we'll be looking into the COP29 and the various basics of COP and the UNFCCC. Now here, this is very important for your prelims when it comes to general issues on environment, ecology, biodiversity and climate change, about GS3 when it comes to conservation, environmental pollution and degradation. Now, when we look at the Conference of the Parties of the UNFCCC or CCC, now the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change is actually the outcome of the Rio Summit. Now in the comment section, can you let me know in which year it took place, correct? Now the Rio Summit is actually a very, very important event in the climate change aspect, because the particular framework of UNFCCC, this is trying to bring across the various countries all across the world in converging for various climate related activities. And the very first COP took place at Berlin in Germany in 1995. Kyoto Protocol was adopted during COP3. We also had the Paris Agreement as a part of COP21, the most important COP ever as of now, which is a legally binding international treaty on climate change, which has the target of limiting the global rise of temperature by 1.5 degree by 2050 and limiting the rise of global temperature by 2 degrees Celsius by 2100. It is also having the targets of having national determined contributions or the national contribution policies regarding various climate change aspects, right? At COP27 at the Sharm el-Sheikh Declaration, we also had the Loss and Damage Fund, which is a very important outcome of the particular COP in recent times. And the recent COP29 is going to take place at Azerbaijan, Baku, right? As we can see, it will be starting next week from 11 November onwards till 22nd November, where we'll be getting during this time many important exam related content. So more to study during that time, right? So don't worry, we'll be discussing each and every important major say outcomes from the COP in the analyst sessions forward. But here some things which are expected from this COP is that it will be addressing the 2009 Copenhagen Convention goal, which is kind of unfulfilled till date, to provide $100 billion annually by developed nations to the developing nations when it comes to fighting climate change. The new annual target may be set above $100 billion in this particular COP. It has to be seen how it can be possible. And also the global world is also talking about transitioning away from fossil fuels to achieve net zero by 2050 in this particular summit. And also the summit will be also observing a 2-week COP truce where all the major countries all across the world, they will be urged to stop conflicts, stop any kind of issues when it comes to Russia-Ukraine crisis or the Israel-Hamas issue. So all will be asked to reduce or dial down their issue over this particular 2 weeks of COP. This is similar to the Olympics truce which also took place, and let us see what all the important outcomes will be coming out of this COP29. But there are some expectations. Firstly, we have to understand to keep global temperatures not rise by around 1.5 degrees Celsius at pre-industrial level by 2050. We have to understand that the global greenhouse gas emissions must peak before 2025, that is just 1 year from now, right, at the latest level, and decline 43% by 2023. So at this level as of now, we have to decrease our global greenhouse gas emissions by 43%, which is not possible ever, right? However, as we can understand in recent times, right, the commitments that all of the countries right now that they are having at the national level, international level, they can only decrease by 2.6%, correct? And we have to understand most of the rich countries, they do not even make compromises, such as the US, such as the UK, right? They all talk and talk, but they do not do anything in this particular matter, right? And the only practical solution is that the developing countries have to grow rich over a period of time, and we have to understand the developed countries must be supporting in their particular effort, correct? And this is where this 2009 Copenhagen Declaration is coming into picture, that $100 billion support from the developed countries, right? But that is also not coming into the picture. While the developed nations, they are not taking any concrete initiative, they're also not giving this funding that was agreed, that $100 billion must be given by all the developed countries to the developing countries in a particular year. That is actually the goal of climate finance, correct? But we have to understand that in this particular ambition, this is falling short. The lack of clarity even what climate change is. Definition of climate change is not at all agreed by in the global community level, right? The Paris Agreement 2016 that required the entire countries to have a new collective quantified goal. That is this particular goal, that is by mobilizing around 2,400 billions of dollars by 2030. That can come from domestic side, that can come from external funding too. And the domestic and external funding, they can have a mix of bilateral and innovative concessional finance, private finance from the private sector, and also the development banks, multilateral development banks such as World Bank, right, and other development assistance. So this kind of funding can be there under the new collective quantified goal, right, by 2024, right? The base value of this particular fund must be $100 billion, correct? And there is also a thing that major emitters like China and India, they must also contribute to this particular fund. They being developing countries, they also have to contribute. So this is actually a major thing that will be seen at Baku in this particular thing, right? This was the first thing. Second aspect is the development of the carbon markets all across the world. Carbon markets have been recently covered in the Analyst, right? So rich countries, they have the option to keep producing carbon dioxides, right, keep producing greenhouse gases by paying more and more money to the developing nations by giving better amount of financial resources, right? So this is where the carbon markets can come in, where the developing nations, they can actually have better amounts of agricultural carbon markets, they can have green building carbon markets, they can have better amounts of industrial appliances, where the carbon markets can be traded, right? So carbon credits can be traded. So for that, the rules have to be framed, the regulations have to be framed at the Baku conference here. In the next article, we'll be looking into this particular news where the Himachal government is promoting the green hydrogen on Kalka-Shimla toy train route. This is a very, very important aspect for UPSC prelims when it comes to environment, ecology and climate change, and also for GS3 infrastructure and conservation, where you can use these as case studies in your mains answers. Right now here, when we talk about the green hydrogen, how they are actually produced. Now green hydrogen is actually a type of hydrogen that is produced via the electrolysis of water using renewable energy sources such as wind, solar or hydroelectric power. It emits no greenhouse gases, and that is what it makes a better amount of sustainable alternative of producing hydrogen from the rest of the fossil fuels. Now we know we need to produce hydrogen for various purposes, right? We need hydrogen in our industrial life, in our transportation and so on. So that is why we can produce hydrogen using solar modules, wind, battery, right? By splitting water, right? We can split water such as, H2O into hydrogen and oxygen, right? And this is generated via renewable energies such as this, correct? And after we have gained this, energy, we have to store them in batteries, right? So their storage is coming into picture, and finally we can supply this across various pipelines, and the main byproduct here is oxygen, which is not at all a greenhouse gas. So this is entirely green, right? And this is entirely pollution free. So this is how green hydrogen is kind of produced. Blue hydrogen is produced from methane, correct? We have the other aspects of hydrogen also. Gray hydrogen is produced from fossil fuels. Pink hydrogen is actually from nuclear energy, and yellow hydrogen is actually electrolysis with solar power as the only source, correct? Now the main applications of green hydrogen is firstly energy storage, correct? We can use this green hydrogen to have proper amount of energy storage for particularly renewable projects, correct? We can also use the green hydrogen or hydrogen gas produced by solar energy and renewable energies for transportation in hydrogen fuel vehicles, correct? Where the main kind of byproduct of these vehicles will only be oxygen instead of carbon monoxide and various oxides of sulfur, nitrogen and so on. We can also use hydrogen produced in a green way in industrial use and also in power generation. Now, India's national hydrogen policy is very important. It was launched in 2021 that actually focus on catapulting India to a global leader in green hydrogen production. Well, the goal firstly, the production target is to produce 5 million tons of green hydrogen annually by 2030. Promoting domestic use on decarbonizing the transport sector because the byproduct of the same is only oxygen, and promoting India as an export hub and promoting better amount of ports and promoting the green hydrogen as a shipping terminal in these ports, correct? To also focus promoting India as an export hub. The key sectors will be energy sector and Indian Oil Corporation, which is promoting, right, better amounts of infrastructure when it comes to energy, correct? Apart from this, India has also approved various amounts of projects such as green hydrogen page, right? Also the steering committee meeting in New Delhi when it comes to green hydrogen. Also address the World Hydrogen Summit 2024 and increase green ammonia production to around 7.5 lakh tons per year. And when it comes to this news, the Himachal Pradesh government is trying to promote the toy train being run via green hydrogen, correct? And this is how the Hill state is trying to promote green energy state by 2026. That this is a tag that they are trying to promote, and this is how they are trying to implement this particular green hydrogen at a very iconic stretch, that is the Kalka-Shimla railway, which is a narrow gauge railway in Himachal Pradesh and travels from this mountainous range, which is very picturesque, right? And on 2008, UNESCO declared the heritage railway as a World Heritage Site. So very important aspect for your UPSC prelims too. Now in the comment section, you let me know what is the answer of this 2010 PYQ, that hydrogen fuel cell vehicles produce one of the following as exhaust. What is the answer, please let me know in the comments section. Finally, when we come to the last article, RBI has invited applications for Deputy Governor post, who is a part of the Monetary Policy Committee. This is very important for our economic and social development. And here, when it comes to Monetary Policy Committee, it is actually set up by the Reserve Bank of India Act of 1934, amended by the Finance Act 2016. And the composition, when it comes, it has 6 members from RBI, where it has 1 member nominated from the RBI board, it has the RBI Deputy Governor, and finally it has the Governor of the RBI. And the other are from the Government of India. As of now, we have 3 new faces as of now. These are appointed by the Government of India, correct? Now these are actually having 4-year terms, right? Each of the members here, which are nominated by the Government of India, they are having 4-year terms, and as you can see here, they are prominent people, prominent academicians from the country, who have high expertise of economics as a subject matter and is having a high level of knowledge about how Indian economy functions. Each member has 1 voting rights, and every member will be casting their vote, and if there is any draw or tie in this particular voting mechanism, the Governor of the RBI will be having a casting vote, correct? The meetings and the process is that they have to meet at least 4 times a year. In practice, they meet 6 times a year, that is every 2 months. The quorum is 4, and finally the decision announcement must be taken by 14 days within the meeting. The mandate and the function is firstly that they are setting the benchmark interest rates such as the repo rate, and they, with this particular repo rate, they control the level of money supply in the country. They also target the inflation in the country, which is at the target of 4 plus minus 2%, that is inflation can be minimum of 2% to 6% within this particular range, right? And if this particular target is not achievable within a period of time specified in this RBI Act, the Monetary Policy Committee must be giving in writing why, right, RBI has not been successful in maintaining the inflation target. And finally, it is also maintaining various monetary policy stance such as accommodative stance, hawkish stance, and neutral stance based on the amounts of money supply or amounts of inflation in the particular country. So this is how this particular Monetary Policy Committee is functioning, and how the various important information is relevant for your prelims examination. So you attempt this 2017 PYQs according to the discussion that just we had. You please let me know what is the answer of the same in the comments below. So with this, we have come to the end of the discussion. I thank you all for your patience. You please do attempt the questions which follow up, right? And till we meet again, all the best of luck. Thank you.